Her eyes sparkled with happiness as she tried on the engagement ring. He looked at her, certain this was the beginning of a new, beautiful life. Together they made plans, searched for a home, dreamed of children. Everything seemed perfect, until something foreign crept into her gaze. Secret messages, late-night walks, a shift in the tone of her voice. At first came doubt, then shock, and after that, a living nightmare. Betrayal? Yes. But the most terrifying part wasn't the infidelity itself, but how coldly and confidently she twisted everything against him. Manipulation, threats, attempts to destroy his life, literally. She stopped at nothing. Not even the police, court, or real criminal charges could make her let go. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watch this video. I value every one of your comments. So let's get started. I'm a 34-year-old guy living a fairly ordinary life, working a stable office job. Until recently, I genuinely believed I'd found the woman I was meant to spend forever with. After 2 years together, I proposed to her last Christmas, convinced we shared the same core values: loyalty, respect, and honesty. For a time, everything felt ideal. We booked a wedding venue, started hunting for our first home, and she even moved into my apartment to save on rent. It all seemed like the foundation of a lasting future. But about 3 weeks ago, everything fell apart. One quiet Saturday night, I noticed something off about the way she was behaving. She became distant, glued to her phone with secretive smiles, and started making odd late-night outings with flimsy excuses. When I gently tried to bring up my concerns, she didn't try to reassure me. Instead, she lashed out defensively. The truth surfaced the next day, and it was worse than anything I could have imagined. I discovered explicit messages on her phone. She'd been sneaking around with another man from her gym for several weeks. When I confronted her, expecting at least some remorse, I was met with a smug smirk. She coolly said, "It was just a test of your love." I was stunned into silence. She spun the entire situation into some deranged loyalty test, claiming I had failed because I got angry rather than forgiving her immediately. Her arrogance was beyond belief. I told her the wedding was off and demanded she pack her things and leave my home without delay. She exploded in rage, accusing me of being ungrateful and narrow-minded. She tried to justify her cheating as some noble sacrifice she had made for our relationship. When yelling didn't work, she collapsed into tears, trying to manipulate me. But it was too late. I saw her clearly now. No excuses could erase the fact that she had betrayed me. I kept calm and told her she had 1 hour to vacate the premises, or I would call the police. Seething with anger, she hastily threw some belongings into a bag and stormed out. I locked the door behind her without hesitation. The next day, my phone was flooded with her messages, a non-stop barrage of apologies mixed with venomous insults. One moment she claimed, "You're my soulmate," and the next, she snapped, "You'll never find anyone better than me." She even went as far as threatening, "Don't push me, or you'll regret it." I didn't respond. I was completely done, though she clearly wasn't. Over the following week, she began stalking me at work, lingering in the parking lot, insisting we needed to talk. I refused every time. Then she pulled in mutual friends, trying to guilt-trip me into forgiving her and salvaging our relationship. I held firm. I refused to be anyone's doormat. Her entitlement only deepened. She shouted that I owed her a second chance, insisting I couldn't just discard our engagement like it meant nothing. She acted like I was breaching some legal contract. A few days later, I came home from work to find her stubbornly perched on my porch, arms crossed and glaring. "We need to talk," she barked. "You can't just ghost me. We're meant to be together. You failed my loyalty test. You proved you're weak." I clenched my jaw. "Leave now, or I'll call the police for trespassing," I said firmly. She sneered. "This is my home too," she lied. The reality was simple. I was the sole owner of the property. Her name was nowhere on the deed or any documents. Yet she acted like she had a claim to half of everything, even though we weren't married and she had broken my trust. To be certain, I contacted a lawyer friend who confirmed she had absolutely no legal rights to my home. There was no common law marriage, no shared ownership, nothing that tied her legally to me. My lawyer also advised me to start keeping detailed records, every unwanted visit, every harassing message, every confrontation at my workplace. If things got worse, a restraining order might be necessary. Unfortunately, things did get worse. She bombarded me with long, furious texts, painting me as the villain for failing her test and reacting poorly. One message sent a chill down my spine. "You owe me another chance. After everything I invested in us, if you don't let me come back, I'll tell everyone you abused me." My stomach twisted at the threat. She was willing to destroy my reputation if I didn't comply. I stayed silent, saved every message, and consulted my lawyer again. He assured me that her threats could be considered blackmail and defamation, and that if she followed through, I had grounds to sue. He also strongly recommended that I seek a protective order. I agreed, realizing I couldn't let her manipulate me any further. A few days later, I returned home to find scratch marks around my front door's lock, as if someone had tried to break in. Nothing seemed missing, but the invasion was terrifying. I immediately installed security cameras around the property. 2 nights later, those cameras caught her on tape, sneaking onto my porch, peering through my windows. I called the police immediately. They filed a report and once again advised me to file for a restraining order. They also officially warned her, if she came back, she could be charged with criminal trespassing. Her reaction was pure fury. She unleashed a storm of angry texts, saying things like, "How dare you involve the cops? You'll regret this." That was the breaking point for me. I collected all the evidence, the security footage, text threats, and police reports, and with my lawyer's help, filed for a restraining order. The judge granted it temporarily, forbidding her from coming near my home, my job, or me personally. I hoped that being served the papers would finally bring peace, but instead, she just shifted tactics. Anonymously, she contacted my supervisor, alleging that I was mentally unstable and that my personal struggles might interfere with my responsibilities at work. Having known me for many years, my boss quietly called me into his office, laid out the situation, and presented the email she had sent. It didn't take us long to figure out who was behind it. Fortunately, my supervisor had complete faith in me. I gave a straightforward explanation. An ex-fiancé was attempting to sabotage my career. He exhaled wearily and cautioned me to stay alert. It was clear by then that she was grasping at anything to regain control she had long since lost. Before long, she escalated her efforts, spreading malicious rumors among our mutual acquaintances, accusing me of abandoning her after a supposed pregnancy, which was an outright lie, and falsely claiming I had stolen from her. A few friends, concerned, approached me directly. I showed them the disturbing messages she had previously sent, and they were quick to apologize for ever doubting my word. Her behavior deteriorated even further. She tried to guilt me over the expenses from our canceled wedding, money that was already irretrievable. She even had the audacity to demand compensation for her emotional anguish and the time investment she claimed I had wasted. I could only give a grim chuckle at the irony. The very person who had betrayed and threatened me was now seeking a payout. Even after securing a restraining order against her, she persisted. She began lurking in places she knew I frequented, like the parking lot at my gym. One night, as I walked to my car, I spotted her leaning against a lamppost, arms crossed tightly over her chest. "You really think a piece of paper can stop me?" she sneered. "This isn't finished," she spat. Without responding, I calmly pulled out my phone and began recording. Upon realizing what I was doing, she lunged at me, trying to knock the phone out of my hand. "You're pathetic," she hissed. "Just take me back." Desperation seeping into her voice, she tried to bargain. I'll drop everything I've said. Of course, these were accusations she had only threatened but not yet made formally. I stayed composed and informed her, "You're violating the restraining order right now." Cursing under her breath, she turned and fled before the police could arrive. I carefully saved the footage as additional evidence. A lawyer friend advised me to file a motion for contempt of court, citing her violation of the protective order. He also warned that if she made any false charges, we would be ready to countersue. I agreed. We began the legal steps to not only reinforce the restraining order, but possibly escalate it to a permanent injunction. Progress was slow, but momentum was finally on my side. Not long after, I got a call from an unknown number. It was her mother. "You're ruining my daughter's life," she said bitterly. "She made a mistake, and you're blowing it all out of proportion. She deserves a second chance." The absurdity of her words almost made me laugh. A mistake? Cheating and months of harassment were not minor lapses in judgment. I refused to argue. Calmly, I replied, "Your daughter needs professional help, and she must stay away from me." Enraged, her mother threatened to sue me for emotional distress. I knew they had no grounds. Let them try, I thought. Soon after, I discovered unauthorized transactions on my credit card, expensive electronics ordered to an unfamiliar address. I acted immediately, contacting the bank to cancel the card and open a fraud investigation. It didn't take long for the fraud team to trace the purchases to one of her relatives' addresses. That was the last straw. I handed over all the evidence to the authorities. Identity theft was a serious criminal matter. The police officer handling my case informed me they would soon interview her, and if the evidence connected her to the crime, charges would be filed. Meanwhile, the court date for her violation of the restraining order arrived. She tried to play innocent, claiming she had been in the gym parking lot by coincidence. In response, I presented the video recording, clearly showing her issuing threats. The judge wasn't swayed by her performance. He not only extended the restraining order, but also imposed even stricter terms: zero contact, whether direct or indirect. She shot a venomous glare at me across the courtroom but said nothing. About a week later, the police finalized their investigation. The fraudulent purchases were definitively linked to her. She was charged with misdemeanor fraud. Panic clearly set in. She began sending frantic emails from a newly created account, pleading with me not to testify and promising to drop everything if I agreed. I forwarded each message to my lawyer and the police, each one only worsening her position. Cornered, she made a reckless final move, showing up at my workplace in blatant violation of the restraining order. She attempted to storm into the building's lobby, screaming that I had destroyed her life and that I owed her security and shelter. Security personnel swiftly intervened and held her until the police arrived. There would be no sympathy for her this time. With new criminal charges stacking up alongside repeated restraining order violations, her leverage was gone. The district attorney's office took special interest once the trespassing and fraud charges were added. They offered her a plea deal: plead guilty, accept penalties, and agree to a permanent no-contact order. Her own attorney, likely exhausted by her antics, advised her to take it. At the final hearing, I sat beside my attorney, watching the final act unfold. She appeared before the court, disheveled and defeated, a far cry from the bold, arrogant figure she once was. Her eyes darted around nervously as the district attorney laid out the full case against her: the recordings, the fraudulent activity, the harassment, and the multiple violations of the court's orders. The judge addressed her with stern gravity. "Your actions have been reckless and dangerous," he said. "You're fortunate that the harm you caused remained emotional rather than physical. Do you comprehend the seriousness of what you've done?" All she could do was nod, meek and broken. The court sentenced her to probation, mandated counseling, ordered full restitution for the stolen funds, and imposed a permanent no-contact order, bringing a long and painful chapter to a close. She had been given a strict warning: Any further misconduct would see her thrown into jail. As the gravity of the judge's words registered, her face crumpled. She understood instantly that she had ruined everything: my trust, any fleeting hope of reconciliation, and even her right to move through life without legal constraint. When I exited the courthouse, a surge of emotions hit me, a mix of relief and deep revulsion. Her relentless entitlement had finally crossed a line into criminal behavior, and all because she refused to take responsibility, refused to admit that her so-called test was nothing more than deliberate, cruel manipulation. She had employed every dirty trick imaginable: blackmail, lies, character assassination, yet in the end, she was exposed and forced to face the consequences. After it all unraveled, I replaced the locks on my doors, upgraded my home security system, and turned my energy toward reconstructing the life she had tried so hard to destroy. A few mutual friends reached out to express regret for ever believing her lies. Others simply vanished, unwilling or too ashamed to take a stand. I didn't mind either way. The ordeal branded a harsh lesson into me about trust, and how easily love can be twisted into something toxic when placed in the wrong hands. Legally, I was now protected. She was barred from coming near me, contacting me, or attempting any form of harassment, with the threat of instant imprisonment hanging over her head. Financially, I absorbed some losses from the wedding that would never happen, but I considered that a small price to pay for reclaiming my peace and freedom. Emotionally, the wounds ran deep, yet I emerged more resilient, more vigilant, and infinitely wiser. In time, I would heal, meet new people, and give my heart to someone truly worthy. Seeing her break down under the weight of the judge's harsh words gave me the final closure I needed. She realized, far too late, that she hadn't merely challenged my love. She had challenged my dignity, my resilience, and my resolve to reject mistreatment. She failed on every front that counted, and now she would have to live with the enduring consequences of her own arrogance. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you. She thought she had everything under control. He thought he knew who he was living with. One morning, and their entire reality cracked wide open. Behind closed doors, a game was unfolding with stakes far higher than just a marriage. Lies, calculation, betrayal, and a silence so deep you could hear someone's perfect world falling apart. But the most fascinating part began when it seemed like everything was already lost. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watched this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. My name is Derek, and I'm 38 years old. I work as a software engineer in San Francisco. For a while, I thought I had it all figured out. A decent life. You get what I mean, right? From where I stood, everything seemed stable. A good job, a cozy apartment, and a wife I absolutely cherished. Her name was Samantha. We had been married for 3 years, and although things weren't flawless, they felt steady enough. There were no major arguments, no serious problems, just the usual ups and downs of married life, or so I assumed. Things began to shift when Samantha suddenly threw herself headfirst into fitness. She had always dabbled in yoga from time to time, but this was different. It consumed her. She hired a personal trainer named Russell, who worked at a fancy gym downtown. Samantha had always been conscious about her appearance, but this was a whole new level. Fitness became her obsession. She was relentless, monitoring every change in her body, posting endless updates on Instagram, tracking every single calorie she consumed. At first, I didn't think much of it. I supported her. I thought, well, at least she's doing something healthy. I even started picking up more chores around the apartment to free up her schedule so she could focus on her workouts without feeling overwhelmed. I wasn't bitter about it. Honestly, it seemed like a positive thing at first, but over time, something started to feel off. It stopped being about wellness. Samantha was chasing attention. She spent countless hours at the gym, more time with Russell than with me. Her social media turned into a non-stop chronicle of her fitness journey. Every post gushed about self-empowerment and starting a new chapter, with strangers flooding the comments, treating her like she was some sort of celebrity. I remember suggesting a date night once, something simple, just for us to reconnect. She barely looked up from her phone. "I can't, Derek. I have a session early tomorrow," she said flatly. "I need to stay focused," she added. The way she said it hit me hard. It wasn't just that she was busy. It felt like I didn't even fit into her life anymore. What once was a partnership now felt like a one-sided arrangement. Each day, she drifted further away from me. And then came the morning when everything fell apart. I was sitting at the kitchen table, half asleep, sipping coffee before work. Samantha stood across from me, chugging one of her green smoothies, her eyes glued to her phone. Without any warning, she said, "I deserve better." Still half in a daze, I looked up. "Better than what?" I asked. She placed her drink down and met my gaze with a cold seriousness. "This marriage is holding me back, Derek. I'm filing for divorce." For a second, I thought she was messing with me. I let out a nervous laugh, waiting for her to crack a smile. But she didn't. Her face stayed frozen, expressionless. "I've outgrown this," she said, like I was an old jacket she was tired of wearing. "You wouldn't understand." I sat there stunned, unable to form words. This woman, the person I built a life with, was tearing it apart right in front of me, without a hint of emotion. Anger and confusion boiled inside me. "Outgrown what, Samantha? What are you talking about?" She exhaled sharply, irritated. "Derek, I've worked so hard to become who I am now. And honestly, this life doesn't fit me anymore. I need more than this apartment, this routine, more than you." She didn't sugarcoat it. In that moment, it was obvious. In her eyes, I was dead weight, something she had to leave behind. The home and life we built together had become a cage she needed to break out of. She slung her gym bag over her shoulder and walked out the door without so much as a glance back. I sat there, staring at her half-empty smoothie glass, wondering how everything had crumbled so quickly. That entire day at work, I felt like a ghost. I went through the motions, but my mind was stuck on Samantha, looping the conversation over and over. Could she really just walk away like this? Had everything we built meant so little? Sure, we'd had our disagreements like any couple, but divorce? It felt so sudden, too rehearsed, too cold. She must have been planning this for a long time. The days that followed were a haze. Samantha barely spoke to me. She'd stay out late, saying she had extended training sessions. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just about the gym anymore. She was reinventing herself, and I wasn't part of the new version she was creating. One afternoon, I got home earlier than usual. That's when I overheard her on a phone call, laughing. Really laughing. Something I hadn't heard in weeks. I'm so relieved I finally took control. I'm done with him. "He just doesn't get it," she said, her voice light and carefree. I stood frozen, listening. It wasn't just about fitness. She was cutting me out of her life entirely. I was no longer even a consideration in her world. A week later, she sat me down with the final blow. The divorce process was already underway. There were no talks of counseling, no let's work it out, not even a temporary separation. She had made up her mind long before, and there was no space left for me to fight for us. It was painfully clear. Samantha had already started envisioning her new future, one that almost certainly included Russell. I soon realized they were spending far too much time together, and what struck me most was her utter lack of effort to conceal it. She paraded their bond on social media, flooding her feed with photos for all to see. The comments rolled in, praising her glow-up, as if she were eager for the world to witness how effortlessly she could replace me. It was as though our years together meant nothing at all. Russell had transitioned from just her fitness coach to the center of her entire world, while I was relegated to a mere footnote in her narrative. Even though I was aware of what was happening, it didn't ease the pain. My mind kept circling back to how everything had unraveled. Was I too absorbed in my career? Had I missed the signs that she needed more from me? I tried confronting her, searching for an explanation, but she shut me out, refusing to engage in any real conversation. Eventually, she handed me the divorce papers, and it felt like the ground had crumbled beneath me. It was official. The woman I had once loved, supported, and envisioned a future with had moved on. She wasn't simply leaving me. She was abandoning our entire life together. I, however, was stuck under the same roof, unable to force her out due to legal constraints. Left to sift through the wreckage of my life, I found myself questioning how things had gotten so bad. The more I uncovered about Russell, the more my anger grew. Matthew, my relentless attorney, unearthed some unsettling details about Russell's past. This wasn't his first time pulling this stunt. In fact, it had happened twice before. Russell wasn't just some gym enthusiast hunting for lonely women. He was a professional manipulator. He would target married women, shower them with flattering words, convince them they deserved better, and when they left their husbands and ran out of resources, he would vanish without a trace. This wasn't romance. It was a carefully orchestrated game. His expertise lay in making women feel invincible, only to discard them when they couldn't keep up with the illusions he had created. Samantha, unfortunately, was the perfect target. She craved validation and constant reassurance, and Russell had exploited that need. But it wasn't just Samantha's finances that interested him. Russell had his eyes on mine, too. Samantha intended to walk away with half of everything, my savings, alimony, and even the house. She believed she could stroll into court, portray herself as the wronged party, and leave with a fortune. What she didn't anticipate was that Matthew had gathered every piece of evidence we needed, and I wasn't going to let her steamroll me. The next morning, I found her in the kitchen, blending one of those green smoothies she was always posting about on Instagram. But there was no trace of her usual confident demeanor. She muttered something about Russell being busy with new clients, clearly fishing for a reaction. I didn't respond. She wanted me to care, to ask about it, but I wasn't about to give her that satisfaction. A week later, the bombshell came. Matthew called with updates. Samantha had filed additional claims at the last minute, hoping to extract more from the settlement. She even claimed emotional distress, blaming me for the supposed stress she had suffered during our marriage. In her distorted version of reality, I was the cause of her breakdown. But Matthew was ready. He countered with evidence that Samantha had been draining our accounts for months, manipulating situations to her advantage. He even had screenshots of her Instagram, where she flaunted her new life with Russell, hardly the behavior of someone suffering. And then, just like that, Russell vanished. He ghosted her. No more training sessions, no more texts, no returned calls. He even blocked her on all platforms. I overheard her, pacing in the other room, desperately whispering into the phone, "Russell, please call me back. We need to talk." Eventually, one of her so-called friends spilled the truth. Russell had already moved on, setting his sights on a younger, less complicated woman, someone without the baggage of a messy divorce. Samantha was devastated. Her once vibrant Instagram feed fell silent. The gym selfies, the motivational quotes, gone. She even stopped going to the gym altogether. One evening, she attempted to reignite something. She stood awkwardly in the doorway, her voice shaky. "Derek," she began, "maybe we should rethink all of this. Divorce has been so hard, for both of us." I looked at her, waiting for the punchline. "What are you really trying to say, Samantha?" I asked flatly. She sighed, putting on a sorrowful expression. "I just think we rushed things. We had some good times, didn't we? I almost laughed in her face. "You're the one who wanted this," I reminded her. "You said I was holding you back. Or have you forgotten?" Now that Russell had abandoned her, she was scrambling for a safety net. She tried playing the victim, talking about everything she had given up and how lonely she felt. I wasn't buying it. "You made your choice, Samantha. Now live with it." Her illusionary world was collapsing on its own, and I didn't have to do a thing. Karma was taking care of the rest. Finally, the day in court arrived. Samantha walked in, devoid of her usual bravado. Even her designer wardrobe had been replaced with a modest cardigan, and her attorney, looking more anxious than assured, trailed behind her. Matthew stood beside me, armed with a hefty binder of evidence. I wasn't nervous. I just wanted the truth to be known. Samantha's attorney attempted to paint her as the victim, the wife emotionally abandoned by her neglectful husband. They spun a narrative where my supposed indifference had driven her into Russell's arms. Matthew allowed them to dig themselves into a hole before calmly standing up to dismantle their claims. He presented text messages proving that I had supported her, offering to join her fitness classes, adjusting my work hours, even taking on extra household duties. Then Matthew dropped the bomb. Screenshots of Samantha mocking me to her friends, calling me dead weight while extolling how Russell was her golden ticket to a new life. The final blow? A journal entry Samantha had written herself, outlining her plan to leave me, take as much as she could, and build a future with Russell. One glance at the judge's face told me everything I needed to know. Samantha's game was over. A heavy silence gripped the courtroom. "Mrs. Sutton," the judge said, his voice cutting through the tension as he fixed Samantha with an unyielding stare. "Your claims of emotional distress are unfounded. The evidence shows no pattern of abuse. In fact, it highlights Mr. Sutton's consistent emotional support throughout your marriage." Then came the scrutiny of the finances. Matthew stepped forward with meticulous records in hand, revealing how Samantha had systematically siphoned off thousands from our joint accounts to indulge in her lavish habits. The judge's face hardened with every page. "Mrs. Sutton," he said sharply, "you withdrew over $15,000 from marital funds to finance luxury purchases, fine dining, and personal extravagances. Such actions are irresponsible and a clear betrayal of marital trust." Samantha's lawyer rose to object, but the judge silenced him almost instantly. "The marital home shall be awarded to Mr. Sutton," the judge continued with finality. "Additionally, Mrs. Sutton is ordered to reimburse Mr. Sutton $15,000 for the unauthorized use of shared assets." Samantha's face drained of all color. The bravado she had once paraded evaporated into thin air, and just like that, the proceedings were over. Samantha slumped into her chair, the weight of her defeat pressing down on her. As Matthew and I exited the courtroom, he slapped my back with a grin. "We won," he said simply, satisfaction radiating from him. Days later, Samantha boxed up her things and left. Watching her drive away stirred something inside me. A strange, quiet relief. She had destroyed everything between us, and now she had to face the consequences alone. 2 weeks after the verdict, she showed up at my door without so much as a call. When I opened it, I barely recognized her. Her hair was unkempt, her eyes sunken, and she moved like someone who hadn't rested in days. "Derek," she said, her voice quivering. "Can we talk for a minute?" I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. "What do you want, Samantha?" I asked, my tone calm but distant. Her hands twisted together nervously. I just need to say I'm sorry," she said, stumbling over her words. "I made awful decisions. Russell, he used me. I let him, and I destroyed everything we built." Her apology sounded rehearsed, but the raw desperation in her eyes was unmistakable. She wasn't there for forgiveness. She was there because she had nowhere else to turn. "I'm not sure what you're hoping to hear," I said, my voice steady. "You made your bed, Samantha. You chose Russell. You tried to wreck my life. Now you have to live with that. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Can't we at least be on good terms? She begged. Maybe start again somehow? I have no one, Derek. I've lost everything. I studied her for a long moment, feeling a cool, immovable certainty settle over me. Samantha, I said softly, I gave you my loyalty, my trust, and my love, and you threw them away like they meant nothing. You don't get to come back just because your plan fell apart. That's not how life works. She crumbled in front of me, sinking to the ground in sobs. I turned without another word, went inside, and quietly closed the door behind me, leaving her outside with the ruins of the life she had shattered. Since that day, I've moved on. The apartment feels like home again. No tension, no resentment. As for Samantha, word has a way of getting around. I've heard she's still trying to piece together the wreckage she created. She's lost friends, destroyed opportunities, and is now left facing the consequences of her own betrayal. Sometimes karma doesn't just knock, it tears through like a wrecking ball. For Samantha, it left her alone among the ashes of her own making, and for me, it finally brought the peace and closure that I had been searching for all along. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.